Hi, I'm Daniel, and I'm going to rank all 53 Avatar the Last Airbender episodes. You thought the Hamilton ranking was big, this is even bigger. If you didn't know, Avatar the Last Airbender, or Avatar the Legend of Aang, as some of my DVDs say, is a Nickelodeon show with 3 seasons, and it's amazing. It is available on Netflix in most places I think, so I recommend watching it because this video has major spoilers. Anyway, I will be ranking episodes mainly on their own right, not how they fit in with the main storyline throughout the show, with some exceptions, and I'll be rating them on what it is trying to do, whether to be funny, serious, or both. One rule is that 2 parts will be counted as one episode. Also, I won't bother with recaps. If you don't know the episode by the title, I'm sorry. 53, The Swamp. This episode just a beyond boring mess. It isn't quite bad, but it's easily the worst episode. It has some foreshadowing the top introduction, but is it practically just doing nothing in a swamp? When the new characters introduced in this episode returned in the day back on, I don't think anyone was happy. They were just like, oh yeah, they still exist. 52, The Fortune Teller. I think Avatar should have waited till season 2 to start the Katang storyline. In Futurama, Flying Yaya was only hinted at in season 1 and 2, and that worked great. However, the soccer subplot is so great it makes the episode only average. 51, The Cave of Two Others. This episode isn't too early like the previous, but it is super generic and boring. I used to like the subplot, but that secret tunnel meme ruined it. 50, Battle of the Water Tribe. Aang is kind of unlikable here, but there is 2 great new characters, so it equals out. 49, The Great Divide. The most hated episode. Does it deserve it? Well, kind of. The episode is entertaining enough, and I like how Aang is more annoyed than usual, but the more is bad because you shouldn't yarn in situations like this because it won't end up good. Instead, this episode should say stop arguing over it because of it in the past or it's unimportant, so I have to agree with the popular opinion that this isn't that good. 48, The Painted Lady. The only book 3 episode that I will call weak for its generic environmental message. Yeah, not every placement's gonna be young. 47, The Crossroads of Destiny. Okay, this is a very unpopular opinion. While this is the part where episodes start getting good, this episode is really rushed and needs to get from point A to B real quick. It can't decide whether it wants to focus on Zuko entirely or focus on Aang and Katara as well, and it fails at both with an estimated 70-30 split. It also fails at being a season finale, so it is only okay. 46, The Headband. I am not sorry for putting this head across Water Destiny, because this at least knows where it wants to be. Sure, it is a weak story, it doesn't work right after the awakening, but it shows Aang just wanting to have a normal life, which is why I like this episode. 45, The Warriors of Kyoshi. I really like the subplot and its message for not saying that traditionally masculine or feminine traits are bad. It says both are pros and cons that can work in unity. However, the main plot is pretty bad, and it isn't really that good of an introduction to one-off episodes. 44, Imprisoned. The humorous earthbending is one of the funniest moments of the whole show, and the only thing memorable about this episode. 43, Jet. One of the beyond the one-off book 1 episodes, but great moral and it introduces Jet. 42, The Avatar and the Fire Lord. I don't really get the hype for this episode. I at least understand Football to Destiny, but not really this. Normally backstory episodes are one of my favourites, but I don't care about these characters. The Zuko and Aang parallels are cool, but Yoda episodes do it so much better. 41, The Avatar Returns. Good episode that sets up the season's plot. 40, Journeying to Ba Sing Se, Parts 1 and 2. The worst 2-parter, which shouldn't even be one because they're 2 completely different episodes. Both have their own separate flaws and strengths, but they will both be around here on the list. The drill is slightly better out of the two, but not by much. 39. The Waterbending Masters. This message about sex and beyond, especially compared to the Warriors of Kyoshi, which can be analysed, while this is just sexy and bad. I also don't get the new character's sudden turnaround and immediately breaking tradition just because he knew Katara's grandma. I do like how stories being concluded, and as always, the soccer subplot is better. 38. The Desert. The cactus juice is funny, this is just an episode in the middle of events, so it doesn't really do much interesting. 37. The Southern Air Temple. Genocide in the third episode, and the great introduction to the Avatar state. 36. The Northern Air Temple. Both these episodes being next to each other wasn't even intentional. Anyway, this makes it to the upper half of book 1 one-offs because both stories are good. 35. The Waterbending Scroll. Katara is getting more development with somewhere fjords being showed, and Zuko is a legitimate threat for once, unlike most of book 1. 34. Nightmares and Daydreams. This episode is kind of genius in the way it works as both a comedic episode on the surface level, but also shows some Aang's fears and insecurities leading up to the battle. Plus with the best fight scene in the entire show as a bonus. 33. Sokka's Master. The one-off episodes in the first half of book 3 are way better than the ones in book 1, aside from the painting lady and kind of the headband. This episode does a power move in the night to flip it so Sokka's the main plot. 32. Bitter Work. Great way to help introduce Toph, but isn't memorable enough or do anything special to make it any higher. 31. Winter Solstice, Part 1 and 2. This was very hard to rank because the first part is relatively weak, but the second part is great, both on its own and setting up what the show will become later. I ended up putting it in about the middle of the list, and in my opinion that feels just about right. 30. The Awakening. A surprisingly depressing episode, but it works, and I think it would have been better as a book 2 finale than a book 3 premiere. But then the headband would be premiere, so it makes complete sense why it's here. 29. Return to Omashu. Good episode for having the return of a character from book 1 and introducing 2 new characters. 28. The Firebending Masters. It might be the weakest Zuko field trip, but Zuko and Aang is the best duo out of the 3 by a yacht, and this is where the episodes start getting great instead of just good. 27. Avatar Day. Sokka and Katara being detectives is funny, and the twist of Kyoshi actually being guilty is superb for subverting expectations. And it does it in a way that isn't annoying. 26. The Western Air Temple. After so much waiting, Zuko finally joins Team Avatar and it's really satisfying, and in a great episode too. 25. The Earth King. In this episode, everything starts going well, but then the next 2 episodes decide to make everything go bad. 24. The King of Omashu. Easily one of the best book 1 episodes, especially for one that isn't really tied to overarching stories, and that's because of how great this setting is, and the new character Bume being superb in how both he's set up and presented. It also has a yard great comedy. 23. Appa's Yosties. Should have been titled Appa Alone, it's even alliterative. How did they miss such an amazing naming title? That's why I give this episode 0 out of 10. That's not actually true, the episode is still great, but that could have got the episode higher a couple placements. 22. The Runaway. This episode is really funny and one of the highlights of really book 3. It also has a yard great character moment from Toph and Katara, even though it's mostly humour driven. 21. The Library. Great midpoint of book 2 and the show as a whole as well. 20. The Guru. One of the reasons why the Crossroad Destiny is so disappointing in my opinion is that it had an almost perfect setup with this episode. Also, I don't properly understand why Katara was freaking out like that when she saw Zuko when she wasn't like that in the chase. 19. The Avatar State. Great book to premiere for setting up the question of whether Aang should wait to earn all the diamonds or just use the Avatar state and fix everything quicker. Introducing that it's not just the Fire Nation that can be bad, it's so much more complex than that, and for introducing Asuya, who is this season's villain. 18. The Southern Raiders. Amazing conclusion to Katara's character throughout the show, and this has a spectacular message about when redemption needs to be earned. 17. The Boy in the Iceberg. The episode that started it all still holds up and gets in the top 20. But that's mainly because how we introduced these characters. So I'm kind of breaking the rule about judging episodes on their own. But it's the first episode, it gets a bonus. 16. The Chase. Great episodes for all characters and has two amazing scenes. One is the talk between Toph and Iroh, and the other is when Zuko and Iroh temporarily team up with Team Avatar. 15. City of Wars and Secrets. A great way to start the Bossing Say Journey to Bossing Say doesn't count, and this episode has a genuine creepy atmosphere in a good way. 14. The Boiling Rocks Part 1 and 2. This episode works on so many levels. The comedy, story, and character moments are executed superbly, and the extra M3 adds the enjoyment and gives more time for the episode to breathe. 13. The Deserter. An amazing episode for how it shows the audience to not jump too quick into things, because when Aang tries to earn firebending early, it ends up to the point where he doesn't want to earn it ever. It has other great new elements like the new character, but that is what makes it work. It deserves to be higher, but I'm ranking these episodes on their own. 12. Yake Yagai. I probably said that wrong. Jet's proper return after only being in Zuko's sub-yacht, and it's an episode that's really funny, tied to the current Bossing Say arc well, and builds Jet up as a character, only to maybe kill Marth at the end. It's from here. 11. The Day of Black Suns Part 1 and 2. The battle that had been built up for a full season fails, and the only thing won is Zuko. This episode has two main characters. One is Zuko, who finally confronts his father and decides to switch sides. And the other is Sokka, who has to deal with a plan's failure and the guilt of using almost everyone. The way everything happened here is both really engaging and well written, and only just missed the top 10. 10. The Beach. Team Avatar only gets a cameo, and that's what makes this episode so spectacular. It's really comedic, but it's also a deep dive into these characters. 9. The Sage of the North Parts 1 and 2. It managed to be a satisfying season finale, which part included a well built up for all the main characters, unlike another episode. The Sage of the North is so excellent for how satisfying and engaging it is, and it has some great fight scenes even compared to the rest of the show. 8. The Puppet Master. Bloodbending's really creepy idea that is used to its full potential with an amazing one-episode antagonist. Build up to the episode is as if not more scary because of how obviously something is wrong and you don't know what it is. And that quick ending is actually executed spectacularly. 7. Zuko Alone. Having an episode mostly with just one character previously established, mixed with flashback about that character works. The flashbacks are a great backstory to both Zuko and Asuya, and the main plot is surprisingly sad story of how Zuko makes friends in a normal place, and how he deep down wants to live a normal life despite what he keeps telling himself about trying to get the Avatar and restoring his honor. 6. The Blue Spirit. For most of this episode, it gives the illusion that another book one-off, and while it is very funny at a certain point, it helps establish Aang and Zuko's character and contrast. This was apparently intended to be a possible finale if the show didn't get renewed more, and I think it could have worked well. 5. The Tales of Bossing Say. This episode is a masterpiece for being needed break time during story-heavy stuff, and has 5 great segments from one other one. For an episode like this, I'm going to do something different by having a quick ranking inside a ranking video to discuss all of them. 6. The Tale of Aang. while not bad, this is easily the worst. Not because it's trying to be funny, but it's bland. It also could have so easily tied it up with being yacht because it's about animals in the zoo, but it didn't. It missed that opportunity. 5. The Tale of Zuko. Still great, but this segment kind of overrated and is far from what I think of when I think about this episode, partly because I prefer May to this new character. 4. The Tale of Toph and Katara. This segment is great because these two characters hadn't had proper bonding before. 3. Tale of Momo. Momo is the weakest Team Avatar. This is spectacular for how genuinely sad it is. Even though it would be good if the Tale of Aang had this kind of treatment. 2. The Tale of Sokka. Really funny and good at being what it wants to be. 1. The Tale of Iroh. Iroh just giving his life in Bossing Day, changing people's lives, and that ending and song is perfection. Iroh is the best Avatar character and I feel bad barely mentioning him until now. Back to the main ranking now after that detour. 4. The Storm. The episode that first showed Avatar could be more than just great at best. It could be one of the best shows of all time. Both Aang and Zuko's backstory parallel perfectly, because before the storm, they seem like polar opposites. Zuko isn't just a villain, and Aang can make mistakes. They both ended up in a situation beyond their control. The wraparound segments also work, bits the flashbacks and the parallels that makes the episode so spectacular, and easily the best of book 1. 3. Sozin's Comet, parts 1 to 4. An epic finale which concludes the series in an action-packed and satisfying way. It is only number 3 because the first part is slightly weaker, but the other 3 parts are glorious. In the 3rd and 4th parts, it manages to switch between the final Agni Kai, taking back Bossing Say, Toph, Sokka and Suki in the airship, and Aang versus the Fire Lord without it feeling any bit rushed or dragged out. Almost everything comes together, and this episode's quality helps Avatar be remembered so well over most shows. 2. The Blind Bandit. This is how to introduce a new main character after the first couple episodes of the show effectively. Toph is introduced, and after just this episode, she is almost as complex as the others. And she, as a new main character, is easier to get used to than a character her change. The Blind Banner also has amazing comedy with Sokka and the Boulder, so it gets the number 2 spot of the list. 1. The Ember Iron Players. Am I really putting a mostly fair episode which is about comedy as number 1? Yet, because it's spectacular in both the comedy department and entertaining department. It is also a great penultimate episode because it recaps everything before the finale, and it reminds you of all the stakes. But it's mostly about comedy. My only problem is that we missed the first part of book 3 in the PA. In conclusion, here's the tier list like usual, and it looks pretty good because I really like this show. This is also my youngest video yet by a lot, and this is a video discussing episodes of something that isn't SpongeBob, which I want to do more. I just spoiled everything, but if you haven't watched this show, you should. Anyway, in the franchise's future, there is a Netflix live action remake that I keep forgetting is still happening, and it probably won't be that good, but I'll still give it a go. And Avatar Studios were recently launched while I was writing this video, that will hopefully be better than what I've seen of Korra. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. It took a long time to make, both in the scripting, it took over an hour to record, and I haven't edited yet by this recording. I doubt I'll overtake this and be in the longest video anytime in the next couple months. The end.